First of all, there's a question here about the sensational fact of President Trump being indicted for a crime that could literally put him in prison. There is a question about how to think about the issue legally, and it is far from a straightforward situation, right? The man did have the documents, and they were classified. But there are nuances here which are incredibly important. One of them is that the president has the authority to unclassify anything that the president wants to unclassify at any time the president wishes to unclassify it. And so if it is true that the president took classified documents and was not entitled to, he also had the power to make himself entitled to. So at some level, it's like a clerical question. He didn't file the right papers to be allowed to take the things that he took, but he had the right to file the papers. So is that something worth putting a former president in jail over? It doesn't seem like it. That's one piece of context that I think is very important. Now, I did ask a legal authority, is there a procedure that he was supposed to go through that he might not have, so he would be technically guilty of this crime? And what I was told, and I will check it with others and make sure that we're all on the same page about what is being said, is that there actually is no procedure. And so if that's true, then how does a president declassify material? Well, maybe he treats it in a way that it's not classified. Maybe he takes it home, right? Maybe he's just simply not guilty on the basis that what he did declassified the documents, and therefore this is just all nonsense, right? That's one important question.
There's a lot of nonsense regardless.
Oh, there's a lot of nonsense. I mean, second issue is Joe Biden did the same damn thing, okay? Except for one thing, okay? Joe Biden took documents home that were classified, right? So we've got a selective prosecution question here. Why are we prosecuting Donald Trump and not Joe Biden? But it's worse by about 1,000 times. You know why? Because when Biden did it, he was vice president.
Without the ability to declassify the documents that he took.
Exactly. So it's, in fact, if I understand it, and again, I'm always open to being corrected by people who understand this landscape better than I do. But if I understand this landscape, Joe Biden committed a crime, Trump arguably didn't. And that we would be prosecuting Trump and not Joe Biden is conspicuous.
Yeah.
Further, this is a moment at which Joe Biden, and maybe this is all happening to distract from the fact that Joe Biden appears to have taken $5 million in what sure looks like a bribe in the same scheme in which Hunter Biden took another $5 million surrounding Burisma Energy and Ukraine. So we're talking about a president who appears to be guilty of some very serious, consequential stuff. Influence peddling, which frankly I must have said 100 times during the 2020 election as we were trying to advance the idea of Unity 2020. I kept saying, look, Joe Biden is a non-starter. Why? He is an influence peddler, and you can't have such a person as president, right?
You did.
And so, okay, lo and behold, $5 million to the big guy. Okay, and that turns out to be the real deal, and it's not $500,000, it's $5 million. That's a large amount of money, and there is now a war in Ukraine, and none of us know how any of these things fit together. But nonetheless, we should be very seriously concerned about the Biden family influence peddling. And at the moment, what we seem to be concerned about is the appearance that Donald Trump seems to have taken documents that by some analysis he wasn't entitled to take, but even the people who make that analysis would have to admit that he had the right to take them through some other mechanism. So it's like it's like a nothing burger without even a patty, right? It's the ultimate nothing burger, right? Yeah. Okay, but so I find this story fascinating. I find the selective prosecution aspect of it absolutely maddening. And the idea that if there is a crime, oh, by the way, one of the things that Glenn Greenwald is very clear about in his system update is that Washington, official Washington, classifies stuff just out of reflex. It classifies all kinds of things that have no reason to be classified. And so even just the fact that, classified documents were taken does not mean that these were highly secret, important things. It just means somebody marked them secret, right? So, all right, all of that is very interesting. And then there's the second question, which is, why would the elites be playing this game, right? For one thing, maybe I don't get it, but I feel like they are playing directly into Trump's hands in an election in which there are a lot of other ways to go.
If he got to run from prison, man, he's just born to be a martyr.
I mean, frankly, I've never voted for the man. I'm not planning to vote for the man, but they are making an argument for voting for him that is getting ever harder to ignore, which is that they are so terrified of him that they will use anything to stop him, including a completely flimsy legal argument that could land him in jail, which would the whole thing doesn't make sense. So, it's like, okay, we agree that there's a terrifying bear outside the cabin, and the DNC has a plan to deal with it. It's going to go shoot the bear. And so it grabs its BB gun and it empties the BB gun into the bear, and the bear notices. And now what? Right? Like, no, why did
the DNC assures us we got more BBs. Well, we do. We've just got so many BBs.
I gotta wonder. I mean, look, okay. Is the DNC trying to elect Trump because they're afraid of Robert Kennedy Jr.?
They are afraid of Robert Kennedy Jr.
I mean, I don't even know if I'm kidding. Right? This is a dumb plan for dealing with a guy like Trump. This is playing right into Trump's hands. Is it possible? I mean, I've said, and I was not kidding, that I believe the DNC fears Robert Kennedy Jr. much more than it fears Trump. It would rather live under a Trump administration than deal with Bobby Kennedy Jr. in a position of power. So this would be one interpretation of what's happening here. It's hard for me to imagine that they would do that. But here's where I come out on it. I don't want to vote for Trump because I really don't think he's the right guy for that job. I do think he is revealing, he is the story that diagnoses the system, right? Mm-hmm. Donald Trump is a terrible problem for elites because he's his own elite and he doesn't listen to them, right? So the point is, to the extent that they've got a nice little racket going, they do not want this particular bull in a china shop or wrecking ball or whatever your metaphor is for Trump.
Yeah.
And so the point is, they will break out all kinds of exotic stuff. They will, whatever happened to the actual election, they will certainly move outside of the election and do things like suppress important stories about Joe Biden's son, right? So, a conspiracy does exist against Trump. That forces you to think about Trump in some different way. That's a very unfortunate thing for them to have done. But here's the punchline. Robert Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump are both threats to the underlying thing, the anti-democratic, unpatriotic thing that exerts this kind of control, right?
They're both a different kind of elite that doesn't listen to the establishment.
Yeah.
But Kennedy has gravitas and knowledge and statesmanship and depth.
Let us say, at the very least, Bobby Kennedy has an excellent knowledge of history. I believe he has clear integrity, that he is not obsessed with aggrandizing himself. In fact, has paid very heavy prices to do what he believed to be the right thing in the face of incredible pushback. And so we have two versions of a threat to something that is reacting in a way that reveals just how vile it is. They would go after, a former president with a flimsy argument over his possession of documents that he was entitled to take if he wanted to, right? That is appalling. And, we are historically stuck with a question, right? What kind of republic, what flavor of republic are we to have? Are we to have a democratic republic, or a banana republic. If you like banana, then, we can play these games and we can go after each other's presidents with exotic legal theories and, nonsense and, gotchas and whatever. Or we could try to actually govern in the interests of the people the way the founders decided that we should do it. And I think we are at the moment where we get to choose. And my feeling is whatever it is that's doing this has to go. And the question is, by what mechanism, right? Do you want the wrecking ball bull in a china shop? Or do you want the passionate, careful student of history who loves this country?
Beholden.
Right. Who is
not
also
not beholden.
Yeah. Okay.
I know which one I want.
Yeah, me too.